another day to try again, to shift, you know. We get bad stuff happen to us every day. So does everybody, okay? So if you have another birthday tomorrow, that means you have another chance to go at it, to fix it, you know? I'm like human like everyone, you know? I have moments where I feel depressed, super insecure, fearful, right? Angry, right? But when I wake up in the morning, I realize, you know what? I can take that breath, and I'm just gonna go at it again. I know it sounds so simplistic and idealistic, and a little bit like, I don't know what it is. But the truth is, you know, we are lucky to live. We're very, very lucky to live, you know. And no matter what it is we're going through, we just gotta push through. We just gotta show some character and push through. You know, someone somewhere is going through something worse. So just, you know, dust yourself up, get up, and move on with it. And I hope that isn't too simplistic of an answer, because I didn't want to answer that one. So I just, you know.
And we had a productive COVID.
Yeah, clearly. And
like, to that sentiment, where you buy your food from, shopping local, for instance, is so important. And I see that now when we're looking at food systems and the fragility of food systems. And also understanding those linkages. For instance, I don't think many people realize that when Russia invaded Ukraine, how that affected.
Idris and Sabrina Elba.
We got to share that with our family, who are it's rough. I'm sorry about that. No, we've had a great time coming to Dubai. It's been a really important week because Sabrina and I got an award.
The Civil War happened, so she would be like, there was countless stories in my childhood about how beautiful the country was and how amazing it was, and every year that it got slowed down, and that devastated me. And I wanted to commit to one day putting effort, putting anything into creating a safe place for her to go back to. So I think that always kind of finding someone who's also first generation African, who has the same passion about the continent. It was like that passion just grew. It multiplied, and it grew from Somalia to
I think that is one component to why I like to do the work I'm doing. I think the second component is more based on, you know, as an actor or as an entertainer, we're showered with a lot of love and a lot of, you know, stuff, almost grossly sometimes. I shouldn't have this sort of, you know, opulence that we're given. And so for me, you know, the drive to... There was a different type of celebrity. It's actually, oh, you didn't forget about us. You brought something to us. And I think that has definitely been a component to making me want to just voice a bit more, you know what I mean? Because I realized that, you know, people, you know, don't have the voice and don't have the platform. It just feels a natural place to be, you know? Don't get me wrong, I love being famous. But, you know, I just feel that, you know, it's a useful tool.
You know, it's funny. I agree with Idris. It's hard to pinpoint one moment, but I think where I grew up as a staff, knocked literally door to door asking people to donate, and we'd raise I think it was only like 6,000 Canadian dollars, but I had never felt so good. Circumstance, you can relate on that and wanting to change that. So I think it's so important for people to travel to understand what other people are going through. And it's easy to forget when you're in the global north that you're living a privileged life, because we are all living a privileged life.
Yeah, I mean, I stand on the side of, you know, all right, dude, get off, man. Because, you know, I'm watching the Grammys, you know, I didn't want to get politicized. But that said, you know, I always applaud those that have the courage to stand up and say something in that forum, because nobody's expecting it, and sometimes people don't want that. And so
Stop caring what people think so much, and you speak up. But I didn't realize how powerful, you know, one person's voice could be till I did like this.
doing it all all day long. You know, they don't get the chance to stand at the Grammys and just have that moment, right? And I think that responsibility is very important. I think Sabrina and Sabrina more so than me, you know, Sabrina's very studious, you know, she's at the edge about it. I applaud those that do it and do it right.
I just want to say as well, because it's such a good point. I think also on the other side of that, create space for people to do the same. So as much as what stuck with me the most after speaking to Duo was the relationship you have with yourself is actually the most important one. In your relationship, or it's good in your relationships, you feel about yourself. That's just an honest truth. It's actually the reason we got into self-care. We called it selfless self-care. What does it look like to incorporate community and partnership?
That actually start to really, like, you know, become planet. You know, they start to form. I think Sabrina and I have taken the time in our 7 years together, married for 4 now, you know, to just really become that planet. It wasn't at the beginning. We started to, you know, rotate into what you describe as powerful. I think for us, you know, like, you know, we did a podcast about the power of partnerships. We called it Coupledom. And we were really intrigued by what makes partnerships work. We spoke to Ben and Jerry's, a famous partnership. We spoke to Kim Kardashian and her mom, famous partnership. And we, you know, and it was really interesting how different all of these partnerships were. And for us, it was a learning curve on this podcast. We shared things about ourselves and learned things. So, and I think ultimately, you know, for us, I never read my own press, right?
It's so exciting to even hear you talk about it, because it was like this thing, you know, almost 4 years ago now. Well, no, 3 years ago now? I've lost all track of time since COVID.
Yeah.
But we actually both had COVID. You guys probably all know that anyways. But we were kind of going through, and at the time there was so much misinformation, and we were blaming ourselves. Oh, what did I do? I'm so unhealthy. Why do I have this? My family in Africa was like, you need to drink more ginger, do this, and sending me like daily instructions. Because, oh my God. So I'm like Googling YouTube videos of yoga, and anyways, on this path, I'm finding that there's no mention of what was affecting us the most at that time, which was community, the relationships. I missed my mom so much, I missed my friends, and no one was talking about how relationships affect your mental health. So that was the reason we started the podcast. And when we realized that actually the most important relationship with yourself, these things have this kind of snowball effect, and we thought, okay, well, what does self-care mean? How do we make it selfless? Do we start with the skin? It's the most outward-facing thing, and it also feels like somewhat of a ritual where you kind of ground yourself. And then that opened up a whole Pandora's box of questions. It was like, okay, why do his products say like peppermint, energizing, invigorating? And mine says like clean, organic, and like, you know, all the things that you see with the pink tags. And also seeing things like a Walmart, or they were like extremely expensive niche lines, or single issue formulations, like this is what you use after you have the data. And with the work that we do, I'm so thankful with smallholder farmers, the education behind that allowed us to build this brand. Which is so exciting. At BioLite, I don't know if you guys have heard of BioLite Spa, but they were the first spa to open up their arms and say, look, people here face hyperpigmentation too. Thank you for pointing it out. It's a big issue for Arab women. You know, and I thought, okay, that's great. Dubai's a great market. So
You know,
I talk a lot. I'm sorry.
you're passionate. We love it.
Yeah, we love it.
During COVID, you know, we found ourselves in lockdown like everybody did, and you know, come shower time, there's one shower gel, and it was Sabrina's usually because we weren't allowed to go shopping. And I remember then starting to. And you know, I was like, what is this? I don't even know what this is. But before you know it, started to pick my curiosity around, you know, the language for men, you know, and skin. You know, men have skin too, right? And we are sort of, you know, just dusted off.
In one bottle, it's just a way to take your money. And I learned that. And I was like, oh my God, like you learn so much when the curtains are open, right? And I was like, well, we want something that feels democratic and is efficient. And we use natural ingredients that are backed by science, so you're not hurting the planet either. And when I say that, I mean you use great.
That our children sort of understand petroleum's not good for your skin, or certain ingredients are not good for the planet. So that's why Sable exists and my participation in it.
I love that.
It's actually, it was so great because Idris came into the brand obviously when we started it together, not really knowing, like, for instance, what a toner was actually for, right? So
Narrative, in film, governments and communities understanding the power of creative arts as a medium to part of our sort of very primitive instincts. When we have children, we want to teach them something that they may not understand. We tell them a story. We break it down. We give them a sense of what it is.
Hi, thank you for all the amazing work you're doing. I heard you talk about smallholder farmers, and what I want to know is if in your supply chain with the ingredients that you're sourcing, have you thought about actually rewarding farmers, smallholder farmers, for the carbon that they're keeping in the ground because they're keeping the ancient practices? It's an amazing way to have an additional income stream, and for products like you're talking about, I think it's like a triple win. So.
And let my children know that they do not have to be me, okay? My generation has made some heinous mistakes, and they do not have to follow suit. And that every single individual is powerful and can contribute. I also believe that, the mistakes that the generations that some of us will come from can be shifted away from, especially when we think about food, when we think about how we treat our planet, how we think about waste. These are things.
Deeply connected to the inspiration that keeps you going and moving this life. We come into situations in life that we think, is this the message that we want to live our life and try to just push it forward? Do you come?
This young
You
lady.
can't steal my
But
technique.
you do have a mic, so we can get 2 comments and then we're done.
two last comments.
We keep pushing the bar, but okay, 2 comments.